The family lost their high-ranking privileges overnight and were exiled to a small, brutal border town near the Chinese frontier. When Hana found herself, I didn't cross a frozen river to chase freedom. I crossed it to escape a lie I was taught to die for. All names, occupations, and identifying details are fictionalized for security reasons. Hana Park was born into privilege in North Korea. The daughter of a powerful military officer in a regime few ever dared to question. Her childhood was one of structure and silence, a spotless uniform, measured footsteps, and the constant reminder that her family's loyalty to the supreme leader defined their worth. At the elite academy, she was known as the Little Commander. Her English classes were strict, her schedule relentless. Every morning began before sunrise with national pledges, drills, and lessons on absolute obedience. She believed this was what life was meant to be: discipline, order, and devotion to the great leader. She was wrong. The fall from grace. When her father was injured during a winter training mission and forced to retire, everything shattered. The family lost their high-ranking privileges overnight and were exiled to a small, brutal border town near the Chinese frontier. It was there that Hana's world began to unravel. For the first time, she saw the faces of hunger. Kochabi, orphan street children searching for scraps behind the market, mothers trading their last possessions for a handful of corn. The propaganda she'd memorized no longer matched the horror she saw outside. Something inside her began to question, quietly at first, then louder each day. One evening, a university friend leaned close and whispered, "Do you want to see the truth?" She slipped Hana a small flash drive, the kind smuggled across the border at great risk. "Watch this. But never tell anyone. If you're caught, we both die." When Hana finally opened the files, her breath caught. They were South Korean drama stories from the forbidden world. People laughing freely, falling in love, making choices without fear of execution. She couldn't look away. It wasn't the glamour that moved her, it was the simple humanity. A world where people were allowed to dream beyond the party's will. That night, under the pale glow of a smuggled screen, Hana made a silent vow. "I will see that world not through a screen, but with my own eyes." The night she left everything behind. Weeks of planning turned into months. She memorized routes along the frozen Tumen River, saved small amounts of Chinese yuan, and found an old map torn from a discarded magazine. Her mother knew. One night, without looking directly at her, she said softly, "If you ever go, don't look back, and know that I sent you with love." In the early hours of March 3rd, Hana stood at the edge of the frozen Tumen River, the border between North Korea and China. Her heart raced, her hands numb. Behind her was everything she had ever known ahead, a future she couldn't even imagine. Her mother's last words echoed in the winter wind. "Go, my daughter. Don't turn around." She stepped onto the ice and crossed into China. The long road to freedom. What followed was a nightmare painted in shades of hope and terror. She hid in barns across northeastern China, slept in fields, trusted strangers who could have easily betrayed her to Chinese authorities for cash. Through China, across borders into Myanmar, through jungles into Laos, and finally into Thailand. Every step forward was a gamble with her life. In one small Thai town, exhausted and starving, she stumbled into a Korean restaurant. A South Korean woman saw her trembling at the door and knew immediately. Without questions, the woman gave her food and whispered, "Wait here, someone will help you reach Seoul." A month later, Hana arrived in South Korea. The air smelled different. The sky somehow seemed wider. Yet freedom came with confusion. The world moved too fast, and she felt like a shadow of herself, a ghost between two worlds. The reunion that broke her. At the National Intelligence Service office where North Korean defectors were processed, she was led into a small room for interrogation. When the door opened again, her father was standing there. She froze. Tears came before words did. He had escaped too, following her path through China, refusing to let his family remain divided. He'd been imprisoned, questioned, and tortured before bribing his way out. Months later, her mother and brother joined them through an underground network. Their reunion was quiet but full, a fragile peace built on survival and sacrifice. From shadow to spotlight. Years passed. Hana learned to navigate this new world. She studied, worked small jobs, and eventually joined Now on My Way to Meet You, a television program where North Korean defectors shared their stories with the South Korean public. During one episode, she was asked to interpret for a visiting international economist. Jim Rogers, a man known for his provocative views on investing in North Korea, he was impressed by her composure, intelligence, and the fire in her eyes. And in a strange twist of fate, he offered her a position as his personal assistant. At first, Hana laughed it off. This must be a scam. But something about his sincerity and the strange coincidence that they shared the same birthday, November 18th, convinced her to try. Working by his side, she traveled to ASEAN summits and global conferences, meeting presidents and prime ministers she had once only seen in state propaganda. She saw the world from first-class cabins instead of from behind barbed wire. But success did not fill the emptiness. The night she almost died. In her 20s, she lost herself in Seoul's nightlife parties, alcohol, and faces she couldn't remember by morning. The trauma she'd buried came out sideways. When a sudden illness, severe adhesions wrapping around her organs, forced her into emergency surgery twice in 1 year, she found herself at a crossroads. A doctor, after delivering the grim cancer scare results, quietly said, "You're 26 years old. I once lost a 19-year-old patient to this. You're lucky to be alive. Maybe someone up there still wants you here." Those words stayed with her. That night, lying in a hospital bed, she opened the small Bible she had carried since her escape. For the first time in years, she prayed. Not for success. Not even for healing. Just for peace. What she found in the silence. What followed was slow but real. She returned to faith, not as a performance but as surrender. She began speaking in churches across South Korea and the United States, sharing her story not as a tale of escape, but of grace. She reminded audiences that freedom without purpose is just another kind of prison. Today, Hana continues to share her journey not for fame, but for healing. She dreams of one day helping reunify the two Koreas through gospel unity, not political force. She's even considered entering politics as the first female North Korean defector lawmaker. She often says, The true tragedy isn't being born in North Korea, it's living without hope, and when you finally find your purpose, you realize freedom was never just about crossing a border. It was about finding yourself. And every time she tells her story, she ends the same way. I didn't find Grace. Grace found me in a frozen river, in a stranger's kindness, in a doctor's words, and in the quiet voice that said, "Don't look back." Her story isn't just about escape. It's about awakening to a love greater than fear. If Hana's story moved you, we'd love to hear from you. What part of her journey resonated with you the most? Have you ever had a moment that changed your life forever? What does true freedom mean to you? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. And if you believe stories like Hana's deserve to be heard, subscribe to stay updated on more incredible journeys of courage and faith. Like this story to help it reach those who need hope today. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could change your perspective. Because some stories aren't just meant to be read, they're meant to be shared. Thank you for taking the time to walk alongside Hana. Your support means the world.